Hello everyone, my name is Alberto, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and leaving a like to the video if you do, it's a great help. So it's been a while after I did another video of this series. If you haven't watched it, I'll link it up here somewhere. It was about byssus, also known as sea silk, but today we are going back to what I wanted to be a series, and we're going to talk about another kind of silk, Lotus silk. The lotus plant is called Nelumbo nucifera. It's an aquatic plant mostly found in freshwater basins. The lotus flowers are sacred in Hinduism and Buddhism. They symbolize the mind, the soul, purification of the body, and enlightenment. The origin of the lotus silk or lotus fiber is uncertain. According to a legend, in the early 1900s, an Intha woman in the village of Kiang Khan was collecting lotus flowers, and she noticed that when she cut the stems, they left behind a stringy fibrous substance that could be harvested and even woven. She used it to weave a monastic robe as an offering to the local monastery. After her death, the weaving practice went extinct, but was revived thanks to her relatives, who began a cooperative to modernize and keep the practice alive. Pa Kon village is a floating community located on Inle Lake in central Myanmar. It is one of the last places on earth where you can still see the technique of lotus weaving. Nowadays, the cloth woven at Pa Kong is mainly exported to Japan in bolts, or sold as scarves or other trinkets to tourists who visit the many weaving studios on the lake. So why is lotus silk so expensive? As we established already, it is quite rare because there's not many people that still produce it. But the process of production itself is also difficult. The lotus stem can only be harvested in the rainy season, between May and early October, during which time they pull each flower stem individually from below the surface of the water. Threads are extracted from the lotus plants by breaking down individual stems. A painstaking process, it can take up to 2 months to extract a kilogram of fiber. Traditionally, the lotus plants were collected from the waters around Po Kong village. But due to the increased demand, most of the raw material is brought there from elsewhere in Myanmar. The lotus stems are first cut into manageable pieces before being scored, then twisted and pulled to reveal the filaments. These filaments are very thin and barely visible to the naked eye. They are laid down on a wooden workbench and kept moist with occasional splashes of water. As the process is repeated, the moistened fibers are rolled together to create a thicker thread. The fibers are fragile on their own, but once they're woven, they become as strong and durable as normal silk. Every time a new length is added, with a roll of the palm, the fibers bond together, forming one continuous thread. The threads also need to be processed within 24 hours, while they're still wet. Otherwise, if they dry, they will break. This means that the harvesting for the production needs to be done every day. The finished thread has a variegated color similar to hemp, but it has a much softer feel. It is typically left undyed to showcase its natural beauty, but it can be dyed in several different colors. Because of the time-consuming process of harvesting and thread making, pure lotus cloth is rare and expensive. A small scarf could retail up to $400. For this reason, it can also be mixed with cotton, silk, or other fibers that make the production a bit more sustainable. When the thread is ready, it's then threaded to shuttle looms or rigid looms to create several types of garments or the bolts of fabric itself. The woven fabric on these looms has a width of approximately 24 inches, about 60 centimeters, which again makes it a bit more difficult and time consuming to use because being that it's not as wide, you need a lot more length of fabric to make an actual garment. The fabric is usually woven in 100-yard batches, and it takes about a month and a half to complete one batch. It's estimated that to make just 1.9 yards of fabric, 32,000 lotus stems are required, and for one outfit, 120,000. This is part of what makes this textile extremely valuable and exclusive. Leftover scraps of yarn are not thrown away. They're usually twisted into wicks for lamps or sewn together to make small garments for the Buddha statues at the temple. As we mentioned before, the fiber can be dyed. Normally what is used is only natural dyes made from flower petals, tree bark, leaves, and fruits. The yarns are dyed in skeins. If you've ever seen any other sort of homemade dye or artisanal dye that's not a big production, usually you do it on a skein. A skein is a bundle of thread that's sort of blocked together in a loop, and this makes it manageable for the dye, but also leaving the fiber open enough that can accept the dye all around it without having spots that are not penetrated by the color. It's also, in this case, normally dyed in the open air using fresh water. Once dyed, it is left to dry outside in the sunlight. Again, as we said, at the moment, fabric from Lotus Silk is only found in very small quantities in Myanmar. The process of production has started to spread to Cambodia, some parts of India, and more recently Vietnam. The lotus is Vietnam's national flower, and it grows abundantly around the country. There are also talks about bringing the lotus fiber on the global market. From my research, there's one company in particular that's investing a lot into lotus fiber production, especially in Cambodia. They are promoting fair trade, improvement of living conditions in the villages that participate, and it does sound very good on paper because they are promoting the many benefits of the lotus fiber. It's at the moment sustainability and, as we said, improvement promised to the production areas. That said, I was looking into it, and the fact that they are marketing it as the most spiritual fiber in the world still leaves me with a bit unsure. But it's great that there are some companies that are trying to take steps into bringing this fiber to a wider public. Lotus fiber itself is sustainable nature-wise, but it is because it's such a small production at the moment, and the production still has to be done by hand. So that's why it's a bit difficult. So we'll see if in the future lotus will become a more widespread fiber, but at the moment it does remain one of the rarest and more expensive fibers in the world. With that, that's it for today's video. I hope it was interesting for you. Let me know in the comments if there's something else you'd like to see in this series, if you liked the video. If you had heard already of lotus fiber or this was the first time, please like, subscribe, it's a great help for me, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.